Okay, let's really get into this. Submechanophobia. You hear that word. And it sounds almost, well, kind of sci-fi, doesn't it?
It really does. But it's actually a very real fear for some people. A deep discomfort, maybe even, outright terror.
Right, of man-made objects that are underwater, either all the way submerged or just partially.
Exactly. And you might think, okay, fear of water, fear of sharks, we get that. But this is different.
Yeah, it's specifically about the things we made, things that ended up down there.
And what's fascinating right from the start is how specific it is. It's not just a general like, ooh, the ocean is scary feeling.
No.
It's focused anxiety triggered by our own stuff in that space. We're talking shipwrecks, sure, that's the dramatic.
Of course, big, imposing things.
But also really mundane things like buoys just bobbing there, but there's a chain going down.
Oh, yeah, into the gloom. Or
Yeah.
like a statue, maybe put there on purpose, but still creepy on the seabed.
Exactly, that contrast. Something familiar from our world, but it's in this totally alien environment. That's unsettling.
And here's the really interesting part for me. A lot of people with submechanophobia, they don't have like one specific bad memory that caused it.
No clear trauma.
It often just kind of develops.
Yep.
So that's our mission for this deep dive, really, to try and understand it. What exactly is it?
What might be behind it? Maybe some less obvious causes?
Yeah, and how do people deal with it, if it really starts affecting their life?
Okay, so maybe we start with the word itself. Submechanophobia. It gives us some clues.
Good idea. Break it down.
So sub obviously means under, Latin,
Under, yeah.
and mechane, that's Greek. It gives us machine, device, basically anything artificial, man-made.
Got it. Artificial stuff.
And then phobos, also Greek, fear,
Fear. Okay, so fear of man-made things under the water. Simple enough when you break it down.
pretty much. But it's so important, as you said, to draw that line between this and other fears.
Totally, like thalassophobia.
Right. Thalassophobia is that big, broad fear. Large bodies of water, the vastness, the deep.
Just the ocean itself can be terrifying for someone with that.
Exactly. Or galeophobia, fear of sharks, which, makes a certain primal sense.
Yeah, understandable. But submechanophobia zooms right in on the human stuff underwater.
It's our artifacts down there, not necessarily the sharks or the waves causing the panic. And like we mentioned, these objects themselves, often harmless.
Right. A sunken car isn't going to attack you. A concrete pillar isn't dangerous in itself.
Precisely. And that leads us into some of the theories about why this specific fear happens, beyond just, fear of the unknown.
Like, what else is down there with that object?
Yeah, that's there too. But there's also an interesting idea about how our brains process what we see underwater.
How so?
Well, think about how water moves, how it distorts light. It can make something totally still and solid look like it's shimmering, maybe shifting slightly.
Oh, okay. Yeah, like it's not quite stable, almost seems alive in a weird way.
Exactly. Or the texture looks wrong. It creates this visual ambiguity, this unease. Your brain isn't quite sure what it's looking at.
You see those photos sometimes, right? Kind of blurry, murky pictures of submerged things. They are genuinely creepy. That must happen to it.
It seems likely. And then there's another related idea
Which is,
that maybe our minds just have this sort of almost instinctive negative reaction to seeing artificial things where they just don't belong, like in a purely natural setting.
like a this is wrong signal. Cognitive dissonance, is that the term?
Pretty much, yeah. Our brains expect trees in a forest, fish in the sea. When we see a shopping cart at the bottom of the lake.
Yeah, that feels jarring, out of place.
Right. It's the foreign object idea. Our instincts might flag it as maybe disruptive, potentially threatening. Even if rationally we know it's just junk, it could trigger that old fight or flight thing.
Wow, so even something totally benign, like a dropped phone or something, could set off this subconscious warning, does not compute response.
It's a plausible contributing factor, yeah.
Okay, so that explains maybe the general unease some people might feel. But when does that feeling cross the line into like a full-blown diagnosable phobia? What makes it more than just finding something creepy?
That's where the official diagnostic criteria come in. For any specific phobia, including submechanophobia, there are benchmarks.
Right. What are they?
Okay, first, the fear has to be, unreasonable or excessive. Often the person knows it's excessive, but they can't control it. It's out of proportion to any actual danger.
Okay. So they might know the submerged bike isn't dangerous, but the fear is still huge.
Exactly. Second, seeing the object or even just thinking about it almost always triggers an immediate anxiety response. That could be just intense discomfort, or it could be a full panic attack.
Wow, okay. Immediate reaction. Predictable.
Yes. And third, that leads to avoidance. The person goes out of their way to avoid places or situations where they might encounter these triggers, like refusing to go on certain boat trips or avoiding specific beaches or lakes.
Or maybe even avoiding pictures or videos.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if they can't avoid it, they endure it with intense distress. Fourth, this whole pattern, the fear, the anxiety, the avoidance, has to have been going on for a while. Usually the guideline is at least 6 months.
6 months. Okay.
And crucially, fifth, it has to cause significant distress or impairment. It messes with their life, their job, their social life, other important areas.
So it's not just a quirk, it's actually impacting them.
Right. And finally, the symptoms can't be better explained by some other mental disorder like PTSD or OCD.
Got it. So it's a specific pattern. Excessive fear, immediate anxiety, avoidance, long duration, real-life impact, and it's distinct from other issues.
That's the checklist, basically.
When someone is experiencing that level of fear, what does it actually feel like? What are the common symptoms, physical and psychological?
Well, the symptoms are pretty typical of anxiety disorders generally. Physically, you might get increased heart rate, maybe high blood pressure during an episode, sweating, trembling. Nausea is common too. Some people feel dizzy or like they might faint.
Okay, the classic anxiety responses.
Yeah.
Okay.
And psychologically, the main thing is just this overwhelming sense of anxiety or dread that's tied directly to submerged man-made objects, or even just the thought of them.
So it can consume their thoughts.
It definitely can. Makes it hard to concentrate on anything else when you're feeling anxious about it. And then there's that strong urge to avoid any potential trigger we talked about that can really limit what they do or where they go.
Sounds like it could be really disruptive, yeah, if it gets to that point. So the good news, is there help available? What are the ways to address this?
Oh, absolutely, there's help. Like most specific phobias, submechanophobia is generally very treatable. The main goal is to help the person figure out and work through the underlying fears connected to these objects.
Makes sense. How do they do that?
Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, is probably the most common approach. It's very effective.
How does CBT work for this?
Basically, it helps people identify the negative or irrational thought patterns they have about submerged objects, challenge those thoughts, and learn healthier ways of thinking and reacting.
So kind of retraining the brain's response.
In a way, yes. Reframing those automatic fear reactions. Then there's also virtual reality therapy. That's becoming more popular.
Interesting, using VR.
Yeah. It lets people face their fears in a really safe, controlled digital environment. They can be gradually exposed to virtual shipwrecks or piers or whatever their triggers are without the risk of real-world panic initially. It helps desensitize them.
That sounds like a great tool, like a stepping stone.
It can be. And then there's traditional exposure therapy. This is done very carefully with a therapist.
Right. Gradually facing the fear in real life.
Exactly. Starting with maybe just looking at pictures, then perhaps visiting a place from a distance, and slowly, carefully working up to more direct encounters, always at the person's own pace and with therapeutic support.
So different tools for different people.
For sure. The important thing is that treatment plans are tailored. What works best depends on the individual.
That's really encouraging to hear that there are effective strategies. Now, we mentioned thalassophobia earlier, the fear of the sea itself. Can we just circle back and make sure we're super clear on the difference?
Yeah, definitely. Good idea. So both involve water, obviously, but the core trigger, totally different.
Okay.
Thalassophobia is about the vastness, the depths, the unknown of the water itself. Someone with that might feel anxious just looking out at the open ocean, even if it looks completely empty.
Just the sheer scale of it is the problem.
Right. Whereas someone with submechanophobia might be fine swimming in that same open ocean until they see something man-made.
Ah, okay. So they might panic if they suddenly see, like, the anchor chain of a distant ship or swim near pier pilings.
Exactly. It's the artificial thing in the water that sets off their specific fear, not the water itself or the natural creatures in it.
So the crucial thing is that human-made element intruding into the natural water environment. That's the trigger for submechanophobia.
That's the heart of it.
And when you think about the range of things that could trigger it, it's huge. We talked about shipwrecks and statues.
Yeah, dramatic things.
But it could equally be, I don't know, a discarded tire at the bottom of a pond, or a submerged shopping cart, or even just pipes you can't quite see fully.
Absolutely. Anything artificial, really. It underscores how specific and sometimes, well, unexpected this phobia can be. It doesn't have to be something huge or historically significant.
Right. And that makes me think, if we just zoom out for a second, think about how much stuff is actually down there.
Oh, globally. It's immense.
Shipwrecks, yeah, thousands of them. But also pipelines, right?
Yeah.
Cables for the internet crossing entire oceans.
Foundations of bridges, oil rigs, docks, not to mention just literal trash and debris, lost cargo.
Countless things. So for someone with submechanophobia, the knowledge that all that stuff is there, unseen beneath the surface, that could be a source of constant low-level anxiety, couldn't it? Even if they aren't looking right at it.
That's a really interesting point. It suggests the fear isn't just about the immediate visual trigger, but maybe the conceptual reality of this vast, hidden world of submerged human artifacts.
Yeah, a slightly unsettling thought. Okay, so let's sort of wrap up our deep dive here. Submechanophobia, it's this very distinct fear. It's intense sometimes. It's about man-made objects underwater.
Often things that seem harmless rationally.
Right, and it's different from just being scared of water or sharks. It causes real anxiety, makes people avoid things.
And while we don't know the exact single cause, theories involve that fear of the unknown, the weird way things look underwater, and maybe this kind of innate rejection of artificial stuff in natural places.
But the good news is therapies like CBP, VR, exposure therapy, they really work. They offer paths to manage it.
Definitely treatable. And maybe that leaves us with a final thought for you listening.
Yeah.
Given just how much stuff we humans have put or lost under the water, this huge, unseen collection of our own creations, blanketing seabeds and lake bottoms, what does that mean?
What are the sort of broader psychological ripples?
Exactly. Not just for people with the diagnosed phobia, but maybe for all of us. Our collective subconscious relationship with nature and the marks, the very permanent marks we're leaving on it, even in places we can't easily see.
Something to think about, definitely. That unseen impact.